Okay, I see. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us in our info session today, where we will be introducing the Youth Sustainable Art Competition, as well as having an informative guest speaker session. Through this info session, we hope to tell you more about this competition and inspire your passion for sustainable art. So let's begin by introducing the organization that is helping to run this event. We here at YEFA, the Young Entrepreneur and Finance Association, want to thank our founder, Angeline, who is also the principal at the New York Military Academy and have helped to found both AFI, Alliance for Impact, and YEFA. We also want to thank Alliance for Impact for their help in organizing this event and our guest speaker for taking the time to attend. So before we begin, let's just go a bit into what YEFA actually is. We are the Youth Entrepreneurship and Finance Association. We are partnered with various nonprofits to help spread the message of youth entrepreneurship and finance to youth across the world. Our events, which can be found on our website, include various finance and sustainability-focused events, primarily among which is our art competition. We also host local chapters at many high schools across the United States and across the world, and we also have volunteer opportunities in addition to our other functions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So again, we are an IRS-approved 501 nonprofit. We are student-run with help from our adult advisors, and of course, we have an international impact. Our mission is to increase finance, investment, and business-related literacy among young adults, while also advocating for SDG and ESG awareness. So these are just some of the events and projects that we've worked on in the past. As you can see, we also run the art competition in addition to an investment challenge focused around ESG goals, an essay competition about finance topics, Gen Z career exploration podcast that help explore various industries that Gen Z youth can move into, and a high school impact social conference that allows us to connect with nonprofits across the world. So here's just a brief overview of one of our other initiatives, the Gen Z career exploration seminars. Through these seminars, youth have the opportunity to connect with various professionals who are working in fields that they may aspire to get into. These seminars are hosted by students who reach out to speakers, plan, and organize these seminars. We also want to thank our marketing division and everyone who is in charge of running these events within YEFA. So here are some of our past Gen Z seminar events. As you can see, we cover a wide variety of topics that help to support youth and understand what kind of careers and opportunities are available to them. At the end, we'll be introducing you to our Discord where you can sign up to see our past episodes. So again, thank you for taking the time. If you want, you can scan the QR code briefly to learn more about our Gen Z career exploration seminars. In addition, we also run several clubs across the United States where we help organize local chapters and to help spread our impact in order to reach more people. We help them host conferences and supply lessons that help to enhance the understanding of youth finance across the world. We are also always open to recruiting further members. If this sounds like something that you would like to be involved in, feel free to scan their QR code. We will be supplying you with a QR code later on towards the end of the meeting. And through this, we hope to find more engaging youth to help propel our impact forward. In addition, we also run a podcast, which again, we'll be showing you the links to towards the end of this presentation. So again, here are all of our socials. We'll be sending this as a screenshot to you in the chat. Essentially, we operate mainly on Discord, and here are all the ways that you can engage with our group and find new opportunities through our initiatives. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Jasonpaul is a renowned international educator and designer with various experiences, and he is our main judge for this art competition. His experiences in spreading impact among youth is incredible, and we hope that you'll be able to gain valuable insights from his speech today. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining us. I'm super excited to be with you today and talk a bit about my journey in art and design and how I've sort of used my different connections, my different experiences to be where I am today. But more importantly, I wanted to talk to you about art and design, the future of art and design. What does it look like? And how can that really help you and guide you when not only you're going to be obviously producing work for the competition, but if you're going to university, if you're thinking about art and design as a career, or even if you're just thinking about art and design as a hobby. So I'm going to split this presentation up into two parts. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more of a background to me and my journey. And then I'm going to go into sort of art and design in the future, and hopefully some important things for you to think about and consider as you move forward. And at the end, I'll be around for some questions and answers. So please feel free to write things down, start thinking about things as we go through the presentation. And I always like to start off with a little bit of like who I am, because sometimes, you get lots of people talk about, a certain subject or do a presentation, and sometimes it's good to tell you about your journey as well, that I was in your shoes if you're a student or, starting to think about art and design, and how did I get into art and design, and how did I start to think about my art practice? But like I said before, in the presentation from my guests and my colleagues, that I'm really an educator and a designer and industry expert. And I've worked for a number of brands, a number of schools, a number of companies throughout my time as an art and design educator and a designer. Some are in the US, some in the UK, some in China, India, and very many different places in the world. But of course, it didn't start there. It really started by me studying art and design. I went to an art school. I went to an art university, and then I went on to study at the Royal College of Art in London, where I did a master's degree in fashion. So again, education is a really important part of my journey. And in any art and design discipline, if you've got the ability to be able to go to art school or an Ivy League school or comprehensive schools and do art, I think your career, your life is going to be much more greater. So I studied at the Royal College of Art, and that's where I really found my passion for fashion, particularly in art and design. I then went on to become a design director and advisor for a number of different brands. One particularly was Nocturne in London, where I had the opportunity also then to go to China and work in factories and see fashion and art in a different cultural perspective. And you'll see from my presentation today when I talk about art and culture and how that's really important. It was an important part of my journey too. I then went on and actually worked for a brand called Benno. And Benno was actually a social, sustainable, ethical garmenting company based in India and New York. And you'll see I'll talk about sustainability today as well, how important that is. And of course, with the competition, sustainability is one of the most important pillars that you're going to have to look for and think about with the competition. I've also obviously helped other designers and students and brands in Paris as well as New York to make sure the next generation of art and designers are supported. And again, one of the key things I always say to any interested in art and design student is you are the future. You are the person that's going to change the future. You have a real impact with this discipline to make a different change. But of course, one of my most proudest and what I love the most is to teach students and be able to see them, create and develop loads of different institutions around the world. Currently, I'm teaching at RISD last summer. Prior to that was Parsons, as well as SCAD and other schools. And here is just some examples of some of the students' work, which I'd love to share during my time at SCAD. This is some of the students' work at Parsons when I was in New York, but also I spent some time also in Paris. And you'll see by the examples of work, they're very different. Some of them are actually sketchbooks, some are final outcomes, some are experiential, some are events. So again, that's always the greatest part of being a part of it, art and design, is that you have a lot of diversity in what you can celebrate and show your work in. And then, like I said, this last summer I was at RISD in a 5-week program teaching some pre-college students, which was really, really fantastic. And one thing that's really important when you are thinking about studying art and design or interested in art and design is definitely look for references, definitely look for examples of other people's work, and just get an idea of, is this something interesting for you? Is this something you like to explore? Okay, it's always good to get reference and see how other people are approaching the subjects. It's not about copying, it's not about you recreating someone else's work, it's about you getting ideas and see how other people have approached a certain subject. So that's really important. And then one of the most things I do right now is I have a company called WeDesign, where I teach online and offline in different countries with a bunch of faculty from top design schools, and we help students apply to top universities So you can see me giving some portfolio reviews. This is a student in illustration, and also a lot of students across different disciplines, from architecture to fine arts to fashion, of course, to illustration, industrial design, many different disciplines. But one of the most important things I like to keep doing is also keep current in the industry. So collage is really my artistic narrative, you could call it. It's the art discipline that I love the most, the mixed media art discipline. And this is just some of my more recent sort of collage work. Just wanted to share that with you, that even though I'm a professor and I love teaching students, it's important that I keep my practice going as well, that inspires me, like the students inspire me. So this is just some of also my collage work, which I've done. And all these are, again, around a theme and a subject. And we'll talk about that in the presentation later, how important it is for you to start thinking about your theme and your subject. What do you want to focus on? Is it something in your cultural background? Is it something in your environment? What would you want to focus your art design on? And of course, what sort of brings me here today really is, of course, being one of the main judges for the competition. And that's something I've been very successful at doing, over the last sort of 10, 15 years in different places in the world. And I really enjoy it to see the celebration and the success of students and anyone applying to competitions or shows. And I really, feel it's a great opportunity to celebrate your successes, but also learn about how to approach a subject, a brief, a theme with your creativity. So again, I'm very always, involved in different competitions and shows and giving lots of different lectures. And it's interesting, this one here, which was one I did in Shenzhen back last year, it was the first time I actually myself became an AI avatar myself. And when I talk about that in the presentation today, you'll see how that's really important in art and design now, how you become an AI avatar profile. So even myself now, I have to think about myself in that realm. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit of a background. Hopefully you get a little bit more about where I come from. But of course, today, I really wanted to talk to you about exploring the future of art and design. And what do I mean by exploring the future of art and design? So I'm going to tell you some of the areas that really students or art and design is really progressing in. And what I want you to do is just take notes of them. Think about, is that something in that subject I like? Or is this something I'm more interested in? How do I fuse them together? But I want you also to think about the subjects around the future of art and design. What are some of the key subjects that I'm thinking about or talking to? And is that something you can even think about with the competition you want to focus on around the sustainability idea? So again, just take notes of something that might reflect to you. And I'm going to start off by taking us back a little bit about, what is art in some ways, and the purpose of art and design, and the purpose of art and design in our daily lives. But art really gives us meaning. That's the purpose of art and design, and it helps us to understand the world around us. And art really plays a significant role in human life in various ways. It serves as a form of expression. It allows us, our individualities, our characters, to convey certain emotions, thoughts, and experiences. But art also has the power to, again, inspire and provoke ideas, and really create a catalyst for creativity and innovation. So already there about emotions and expressions and individuality, it's really important that you have that as an art design student, or when you're creating art and design, it's an individual expressive approach. And two things I'm going to focus on today is, the first thing is why is art and design important in our lives? Because that's why there's always going to be art and design in the past, the present, and the future, because it's interlocked in between our lives in the most important ways possible. And I want you guys to do, and I'm going to give you some assignments during this presentation actually, it's called the question. And I want, through this presentation, for you to be able to come up with your questions and try and find the answer to your questions. And this is going to help you to consider further your subject and your theme of expression through art and design. But also it can help you to think about the area you want to study, the interest you want to speak to. And I've got the 3 questions here. So I'm going to tell you, why art and design is important in our lives, but why is art and design important in your life? What areas of focus is your art and design, and what areas of interest you want to speak to? So there's some questions I want you to think about as you listen to the rest of the presentation. So let's get going. So why is art important in our daily lives? Why does it exist? Well, it exists because it's always exists for generations. Art has been a constant companion, throughout history. And it's really expressed the human spirit, they call it, from back when, we had cave wall paintings and, art and expression has always served as a testament throughout our evolution. So it's always been there. So really art is in our DNA. Art is a fundamental part of being human. We can't be human without having art and design. Think about it for a moment. You're born, and then suddenly you're painting, you're born and you're doodling, you're born and you're making clay objects. So from a really early age, for some reason, humanity starts to create art and design. It's like a secret special language that we are built with, we grow up with, our environment is around. And it really simply is just an expression of who we are. So art is like a history, it's like a time machine. And it takes us through a whole journey from when we grow up to when we pass away. And it's always going to be there, from prehistoric paintings to Shakespeare. And if you look at history, there's always art and design. So when sometimes people think about careers in art and design and they think about it's just galleries, and they think about art and design is just paintings. It's not. Art and design is history. Art and design has to be designed. Everything around you needs to be designed. Everything around you throughout history has been art and design. But what else is art and design in our daily lives? Well, art speaks where words can't. So, sometimes we want to express something. Sometimes we're feeling a certain way. Words can't do that, but art can. And art can actually speak louder. Art can actually have much more expression than words can. They can be much more personal as well. So art is a very powerful tool. And again, these are two examples here, and I'm going to show you many examples throughout the presentation of different approaches to subjects when I talk about them. But these are two different approaches to the idea of personal expression, but also how, art speaks louder than words, with these two different examples here. One here on the left-hand side is about Amazing Grace and this figure and this religion and this dove and this sort of dark dog, thinking about this idea of dark and light and shadow, and which way do I go with my faith. And on the other side, it's about emotion of faces. This person has multiple faces, and she's obviously drawn this piece of artwork in that composition. So again, think about your composition, your artwork, think about the meaning, the message, and how it speaks to your work. Another two examples here, talking about expression, talking about sort of even emotions. The first one on the left, look at an emotion that actually there's no facial features. So how do you know the emotion? Well, the emotion is through color. The emotion is through this sense of being. Whereas the one on the right-hand side, and again, I don't know if it's the left or right on your screens, is about, again, the different faces of emotion, the covering of emotion. So again, expression is really important. So think about that within your artwork. And again, these are more traditional, you could say, figurature, portraiture, but of course, a very famous artist, Kandinsky. This is called Composition 8. And this was the relationship between colors and forms and the spiritual and the psychological effect. So again, it doesn't always have to be realistic. It can also be abstract and still have an expression and still speak a lot of words. So what else is art important for in our daily lives? Well, it connects us. It connects us as cultures. It connects us as groups, as schools or in events or in organization. But art really can bring us together. It can really connect communities. And it can bring us together in more peaceful, more collegial, more diverse and inclusive ways. So art's very powerful at doing that. Art also brings this self-discovery aspect too. So it helps you to reflect on yourself. It's like a mirror. When you're painting a piece of canvas, you don't know you're actually painting on a mirror. Whenever you're creating an object, you don't realize you're actually creating on a mirror. So really, when you're creating art, it's actually a reflection of you a little bit. And you're discovering yourself. And this is a great image that I think explains it all. How sometimes you have all these ideas in your head and you just don't know what to do with them, or you don't know how to get them on a piece of paper or on a canvas, or you don't know how to express them. And art's a really great way of being able to do that. It's like a mirror to your soul. It reflects your joys, it reflects your struggles, your deepest desires. But really the key thing is it's about discovering yourself. That's really what art and design is about. And you will find on your art design journey, it will be a long life episode. It'll be a long life journey to find all these things about yourself. I myself as an artist, I'm still figuring out things about myself through my art. And that's the real joy and that's the real pleasure of being an artist, that you'll continue discovering more about you and your environment and how it works through your art. So another key thing, whenever you're creating something, make sure it's something that you're expressing. It could be an observation, it could be an idea, it could be something more personal, but make sure you're not just copying something that doesn't have anything about you and your personal understanding. And again, whether your medium is more fine arts, whether your medium is more digital or collage, it doesn't matter. As long as you're expressing something that can be inspirational, motivational, then that's the key thing. And art can also be very, therapeutic as well. It can be a very soothing, it can be a very meditative way, also as a use in our daily lives. And it can really help through trauma. It can really help through phases where you're not feeling great and you've had some struggles in your life. So again, art can be a really powerful healer for us to use in our daily lives. But art is also a very cultural melting pot. There's so many amazing cultures in art throughout history, so many architectural buildings, so many more literature that is cultural, that can really be fused together to create this really amazing cultural, social society of art and design. And it really brings together all the amazing walks of life we have in our world. And that's also why I love art, because it's such a transitional subject that can come across different places. And if you think about when you go to an exhibition or you go to a gallery or an event, there's all these different people looking at maybe the same piece of work, but they maybe interpret it in many different ways, or maybe through their cultural understandings, they look at it in different ways. But you get to meet so many diverse people when you study art and design. But again, going back to, what does art and design reflect? Again, it reflects culture. It reflects identity. This is a very famous pointillism piece, Jules Seurat, and it basically just depicts a Sunday, just a normal Sunday in 1884 of what people are doing in society. Well, of course, this is not what we now do. Now we dress very differently. Environments maybe look a bit different. But again, art reflects culture and it's an identity. Same here. This is a very different identity and a very different culture, but it reflects what people are wearing in a certain community or certain country. Same here. This is done obviously as a mural on a wall, and again, it still really reflects culture and society. So art isn't just about paintings. It's not just about pastimes or pretty pictures on the wall. It's a vital component of our lives. Okay, so it contributes to our well-being, helping us cope with stress. It gives us a voice when words fail. Art connects us. It enriches our culture, and it contributes to the growth of our community. So that's really what art is. So it's important to understand that art is a really important part of our daily lives. So let's get into the real topic of today's presentation, which is the future of art and design. So what is the future of art and design? How do we look at the future of art and design? Well, the future of art and design really is the connection between art, culture, and technology. These are really the core components now where art and design is evolving. So if you're a student thinking about art and design, you really want to start to think about how can you be interdisciplinary between art, culture, and technology. And this relationship together is really a dynamic sort of tapestry that's shaping everything we do, from a social narrative to intersect creativity, to also reshaping our cultural landscape. And the first one I'm going to talk about today is the intersection of art and technology. And this is really where we've seen a lot of developments in art and design and how it's really rapidly changing. And some of these you may already know, some of these you might not know. So again, hopefully some of the things here that you're going to see, you're going to be very surprised by and excited by and enthusiastic to go and look into and study and research to think about, could this be something that I'm really interested in? And I'm going to look at these four different aspects when we talk about technology and shaping the future of art and design. I'm going to talk about the digital art impact, the impact of AI in the creative process. We're going to talk a little about virtual reality and AI and AR, and also explore how technology was also influencing artistic expression. But one thing I want to say about technology is that sometimes technology is more of a tool for the process than replacing the subject of the artist. What do I mean by that? Because the big wave right now of words is AI. Everyone's really, into AI. Everyone's talking about AI, but no one really knows what it fully is. And that's because it's more of a process. It's more of a tool. It's not going to replace necessarily the actual fundamental of architecture. It's not necessarily going to translate or change the fundamentals of fashion. It's going to be a different tool. It's going to be a different creative process. It's going to be a different mechanism that changes how we develop that. So it's really important, even if you're going to be doing digital art, that you suddenly still make sure the theme and the subject is your personal expression. You're just doing it through a digital art lens. But that's what we've seen. We've seen a lot of digitalization of traditional art materials and tools. So again, we've seen the paintbrush turn there into a pen from a laptop or from an iPad. That's what we've seen a huge change. And our canvases and our digital tablets instead of an actual canvas, and we're using more softwares to create our art. And with certain traditional subjects like photography or digital illustrations, these are becoming more popular in the different technology realms. Of course, one sort of digital art technology or software that's been really seen a big sort of interest is Midjourney as an AI image generator. This is an image used on Midjourney. But we're definitely seeing digital painting. We're definitely seeing different approaches in the use of AI and digital art and technology. And you can see here, this is just a screenshot of actually using Midjourney as an approach to art and design. So again, something that you might want to think about as a subject or a skill that you want to learn or be interested in within your art and design. We've also seen a lot of diverse 3D printing, using more 3D printing objects. Again, we've seen this through a different lens, from fashion to architecture to fine arts, but using 3D printing now in a technological way to create new interesting objects or ideas. This is Iris van Herpen. She's very well known for using sort of 3D printing garments. But also recently, they end up, recently, it was a few years ago, created the first ever 3D printed house. So it just shows you the scale that some of these new technologies can go in. So don't always think small, think always big, always think beyond what you might think could be possible. And again, also using different technologies to create garments in 3D that then become possible, so from 2D to 3D. But one of the biggest sort of evolutions in technology is the blurring the lines between humans and machines. So this AI generative sort of artistic approach, and this is where I'm excited about. And I, like I said earlier, I showed you sort of pictures of me as an AI avatar. I think this is where the world is definitely taking off in this space of art and design. The image here on the right-hand side is actually one of the first ever AI art called Edmund de Balmery. And that was one of the first ever sort of AI machine created art. But now it's become very popular, the AI artwork. And on the left-hand side is a piece of work called Memories of Passers-by, created on the screen. But the interesting thing about AI is the discussion how the use in the creative process is. Like I mentioned, these still could have a subject that someone came up with. Someone could have still decided how they wanted it to sort of be presented. But again, the AI is the creative process to make it possible. It makes the outcome happen. The algorithms in the learning machine make it the outcome. So it's a balance of still that the artist designer has to input something still to make the outcome possible. I love these AI generated visuals, and they're always wacky and always like they look very surreal, but I really find them very fun. But again, AI is now also being looked into different places of in the fashion as well as in art and design. So these are sort of more virtual garments, and they're used a lot now in fashion shows. Instead of having a real fashion show, you're having a virtual fashion show. But we're also seeing new computer generated models for more inclusive, diverse industry. So we're also seeing a lot of computer generated models as well, which is an interesting space within art and design. there was a wave of blockchain art NFTs. It's sort of died down a lot now, but at one point we were using a lot of art in NFT worlds. And what is that? So basically, blockchain is when you own a fractional percentage or a piece of work that you can own separately. So 100 people can own this separate piece of work digitally. And this was all that came around through cryptocurrencies and the digital marketplace. But again, an interesting way technology is changing art and design in the future. And I know a lot of my students, young students actually as well, have been creating NFTs and been able to sell their artwork online in this format. But we've seen a lot of now companies take over new spaces with Roblox. I know my nephews also do Bed Wars a lot and all these different Fortnites. And now companies are also creating or using technology in this metaverse space. And using technology to create new metaverse experiences. We're also seeing a lot of development in AR as well as VR. So again, using augmented reality and virtual reality to create new experiences within art and design. And to tell you what the difference is, and you can see here quite clearly in this example, augmented reality is basically where the thing in front of you doesn't exist, but through the technology, it creates a different version of that reality. Whereas virtual reality is, of course, most of the time you're wearing a headset and you virtually feel like you're in that space and you're moving around and touching that thing within that space. So similar realities in some ways of what's happening, but done in different ways. And again, we're seeing a lot of this now develop in three-dimensional simulations in exhibitions and in environments. So again, installation art, you might want to think about that could be something you want to be interested in. And of course, these installations don't exist. They're all digital, they're all virtual by using the headset. So it really transforms the creative experience. Pretty amazing. Yeah, and experiential art and installation, I think, is one of the probably most popular things right now. And really, any sort of major city, you've seen a lot of these pop up where you get these huge LLDs, huge spaces with this sort of experiential art and design. And one of the artists I've really been looking into is Reflex Anadol and his Melting Memories, where the screen and these massive screens that move around. And it's really, really fascinating how just this sort of simplistic use of technology, but the interactive spaces making us really connect. I particularly went to a Van Gogh exhibition, which had the projections everywhere, and it was just a really fabulous experience where you could have a different experience with the artwork. You could also touch the artwork. You could also change the artwork. So again, technology is used in so many different ways now within art and design, from your digital art to your installational art to your VR to your virtual to your AI. So really something that you want to consider exploring or looking into, because it's definitely the tool that art and design is going to be continuously to use and adapt to and include. So the other subject about exploring the future of art and design, and again, this probably now speaks a lot more to the competition, is sustainability in art and design. And sustainability, refers to things that are circular, responsible, inclusive, and renewable, and how we can reutilize materials, how we can be more eco-friendly, how can we find ways to make what we create more beneficial for the environment instead of taking it away from the environment, making things that are more accessible, but really being inspired by a social awareness and pressing global issues through the things that we could create to say, stop doing this, or let's focus on that. So sustainability is also about the social awareness of global issues. And it could be, many different forms and many different things, and we'll look through a few now. This is a building actually in Singapore, I think it was Singapore. But you'll find in a lot of these different architectural spaces where they're basically growing more plants, more green environment. So it feels less like a concrete jungle and more like a natural environment, which of course gives us more oxygen, but also it just feels more sustainable. It makes people feel happier to live around these types of buildings. So you're seeing a lot of green buildings, not only with energy and also being sustainable in other areas, but I love the fact I'm seeing these more natural buildings connect between the sort of more manufactured but also natural environments. I had a student, or the student of Parsons, should I say, Jacob, who started to look at how we could grow clothes and how we could put like actual seeds in fabric to grow clothes and grow the fabric onto these clothes in a sustainable way, which was really interesting. And that goes probably to the next sort of one of the biggest things within sustainability, especially within fashion, is upcycling waste and reusing waste. And how can you use that within art and design? How you can be more sustainable. These are two examples. One on the left, it was about taking recycled plastic strips and making it into a chair. And that was a really creative project. And the one on the right was using frames, old frames with window frames, and just creating a new piece of artwork using, again, materials that already exist to create a new fashion narrative. Another example that I really love was Justin Gignac, which is, he's a sort of a garbage sculptor, let's call it. But he goes around different events that happen and has this sort of clear plastic box, and he puts the garbage in there and he sells this as art. He sells this as an experience. So again, utilizing the idea of upcycling, recycling, sustainability in different ways to create art. So again, this could be an event that he sells one of these for. So in a way, taking the trash to treasures idea into a new space. But in the idea of sustainability, of course, art can be a form of environmental awareness. You can cause or shine light on a certain type of situation. Of course, climate change is a big thing right now, but ocean plastic has been a big thing for a while. And these are examples of actually ocean plastic I'm going to show you. But it could be deforestation, it could be pollution. So you might decide to focus your art and design and maybe focus your project on a global issue. And that really could help you to framework how you're going to, maybe draw your picture or create your object for your projects. This was actually in Wales, where they use all these plastic bottles and all the different waste that they found on the beaches to create this really beautiful sculpture. This was an artist, Tenjizu, and he created this plastic ocean installation where you would lie underneath all this plastic as if you were in the sea and it was consuming you. And I thought it was so empowering and impactful, because you could literally get a sense of this is what the fishes are like when they're in the sea. So again, you walk away with a really impactful lesson about global consumption and waste usage. So again, a really, really strong artistic installation and awareness approach. This was another picture of the same installation. Again, very impactful. But the interesting thing about subjects within art and design, you'll find that they're very similar with different artists, because there are similar things that happen in the world. So another designer, Mary Barker, had the same plastic, ocean plastic, but did it in a very different way. And you can see here, she's created these amazing, beautiful sort of photographic prints to showcase that. And actually, if you're interested in exploring this further, Mary Barker, try and Google the Sea of Artifacts, and it's an amazing exhibition. You'll see in many different ways, but it's beautiful. But of course, there's still a very serious subject behind it. And that's the thing, you want to try and find an artistic way to approach these subjects, because we still want to be artistic. We still want to be attracted with the expression and the identity of your work, even when you're using some of these subjects. But Adidas particularly, they partnered with Parley the Oceans to create now footwear from the plastic from the oceans. So again, there's a circularity there of how we can keep reusing materials, put them back into the shoes then get worn. When they get worn down, they get back into plastic and it goes back to the shoes again. So again, just shows you what you can now do with sustainability and circularity in that design approach. This was a really amazing exhibition that was in London, and it was to highlight climate change. And these 24 ice blocks would just melt. And it was basically to say that the ice caps are melting. and we need to focus on climate change. So really, experiential installation, but a really strong message about impact. So again, a few different sustainable subjects there that you could focus on, but of course there are many different more that you could look into. But that's definitely something that the future is continuously going to be focused on. Global issues, impact, and social impact. And that's what the next one is all about: social cultural impacts in art and design. So I've talked about technology, I've talked about sustainability, and the last one really is again this idea of social cultural impact. And this is the big one, if I'm honest. I think from a technology point of view, I think that's going to be where the sort of innovation, evolution, the creative process is going to continue changing. It's going to make things be able to be generated through an AI digital space. It's going to be a tool. But still the subject matter from a sustainable and social cultural is where you're going to get the thematics. It's where you're really going to be able to find the themes for your projects, for your artwork, and really have the biggest impact, especially for the competition as well. This is where you need to start thinking about how does it express, my personal approach. So when we talk about sort of social cultural impact, it's really about community engagement, and social impact. And you can see here, it could be about equality, it could be about social justice, it could be about diversity, the environment, or it could be about health and well-being. And looking to address these societal, environmental issues within your work. First one, community engagement and social impact. Even this image here, which you can see here, it's just an image that says design for change. And changing, how we look at it could be, the Black Lives Matter movement, it could be women's rights. So looking to see how design can change things. Two examples here of two great pieces of artwork. One is about, again, Women's March and hearing their voice. And the other one is also about racism, about enough is enough. So again, can be really powerful using art to express, communities, struggles, or voices in a very artistic way. Body positive and diversity. I've seen a lot of discussions around, embracing their individualities and, and when it comes to size or shape or skin color or culture. So again, a really, important topic that everyone is trying to address, but also express through art and design. And similar for accessibility and inclusivity in developing new design systems, thinking about it in different ways. This is an example of a brand called Flora, where they're creating these different attachments for bags, for coffee cups, for people with wheelchairs, so they still feel included and can have these attachments put onto their wheelchairs. But again, you can do it in a very artistic way, different social, cultural subjects. The first one here on the left is about beauty. So again, it's just trying to talk about beauty as a suspect, giving a question, giving a conversation. Second one is about sort of bullying. It's about, are you too fat? Are you too skinny? All giving certain labels. So again, that's this artist's approach, by these sort of words sort of spewing out of their mouth. And then the last one is also about beauty and so again, they're all around the same sort of ideas of identity, expression, beauty, confidence, appearance. So again, 3 different approaches that could be around that same one subject. And that's why when you're creating your own design, you need to be very personal and find your own way of executing your idea. So other examples of sort of social cultural, one on the left is a designer who was focused on immigration and refugees and creating functional clothing, but also that could be shelters or bedding, or could be sleeping bags, but also they could wear them as garments. So really interesting sort of refugee immigration sort of focused project. And again, on the left, we are America, we are home, also focus on the, Americans are very diverse and inclusive, and immigration is a huge part of the history of America. But again, done in a very beautiful way. I think the artwork is beautiful. Again, some more somber, you could say, or different approaches to the idea of sort of immigration, or the idea of, so you can see here on the left-hand side, this is about obviously slavery and in Europe and talking about how that was a terrible past and just showing this in an artistic way. And then on the right hand side, this is more about the farmers and the workers and how they're maybe not treated as well. And again, the rights of the workers. So again, done in a very artistic and very powerful way. And again, similar here, someone's used screen printing on plastic to again represent this idea that sometimes in developing countries, there's a lot of toxins, there's a lot of toxical objects or plastic that these children that are working in these places go through. So again, another different way to express art and design. So how does this help you? So, I've now talked a little bit about different futures of art and design, different areas. I sort of shared with you different artwork, to give you an idea of approaches to subjects. I've also showed you, that some are maybe tools for a process, some are maybe artistic in its outcomes, some are around subjects that you might be personally interested in or reflective about. So how does this help me? How does this help you? Well, the first thing I wanted to share is what, as you as a student or as an artist, had to think about. So you need to think that in an entrepreneurial way, in a mindset, and a global citizen. So you have to think about the world around you. You have to think about all of these impacts that I've shared today. You have to really think about that within your artistic landscape. You have to be a caring and compassionate design thinker. You have to care about things, care about people, places, everything that's going on, to be a really creative design thinker. You have to bring a unique perspective and a unique expression and a design identity. So again, what is it about you that you want to express? What is it about your work that makes you unique to you? You don't have to be different to someone else. It's about what does it mean to you? And that brings that character and then authenticity into it. So if you just like to paint with red, then just do red. If you like to just make buildings out of concrete, just make buildings out of concrete. If you want to, create artwork to support children in need, then do that. So what is your personal approach and why is it the cultural reference to who you want to be? Interdisciplinary art and design skills. As I've shown you, there's so much variety, but now we're really combining interdisciplinary skills from digital to physical to different processes. So you can't just be one type of art and design now. You have to try and be interdisciplinary. That's going to continue to be in the future of art and design. And that means definitely embracing technology as a tool for art and design in the process. But going back to the question, because that's what I sort of started with as well, I asked you to think about what is your question? And the question, of course, for this competition, we already know is around sustainability, but I wanted to be a bit broader to that today. And it was more about what do you want to create in art design? I sort of showed you a little bit what the future is, what is currently happening right now, but what do you want to create in art design is more important. I don't want you to copy just what I've told you. I want you to do something different, something new. I want you to be you in what you create in your art and design. And again, this is some examples of some of my students thinking about that themselves. The first one, Alice, is a really talented student. This is about hope, actually. This first one on the left. This is literally, the subject is hope, that waking up every day with a smile on your face, knowing you can change the world. So this is called hope. The one on the right-hand side, this is about, of course, climate change. And it's a 3-series portrait painting of climate change from the top, which we see on the surface, to the bottom. And of course, the bottom is the richness and the amazing sea life, but then suddenly there's the pollution, and then there's the environment that we inhabit, which is where the pollution comes from. So a really interesting approach. Here you can see on the left-hand side is obviously to the past COVID and taking that in an artistic way to obviously design different masks and different expressions. The one on the right-hand side, it's all about work and working until we're old. That's what this theme was about. And again, really beautifully done in a really more traditional medium. This was a project about water carrying and carrying water from different places using different objects. So again, this is more of a product design, sort of industrial design approach with UNICEF, but again, very, very focused on social impact. This was an illustration project, which one student focused on, and it was about peer pressure. Of course, this peer pressure of getting grades, this peer pressure of being the best, and they did it in a really interesting, illustrative way. And then this was also more of a digital illustration version, where the student was focused on the relationship between humans and nature, and how we can't be without each other, and how that work, weaving that together to create these really interesting illustrations that were working together. So really, really beautiful. But we go back to the question again. So, what is your art and design? What is the theme or direction that you want to take? What is your subject? What is your source of inspiration? And it could be anything. Like I said, it could be climate change. It could be humans versus nature. It could be peer pressure. It could be peace. It could be focused on any subject or direction you want. It could be focusing on wars. It could be focusing on things that really you're passionate about. So what I would do is brainstorm and start writing these things down, start thinking about what them themes could be. And again, this is in the concept or context of not just this competition. This is just about art and design in general. Are you just really fascinated by the body, and you really want to focus your subject on the body and maybe how you want to represent the body? Think about diversity of the body. Maybe it's more about self-expression of the body, how body changes, how body gets old and ages. Maybe that's your subject, not your focus. Maybe it's about beauty and aging. So there's always loads of things you can develop through your work. But continue with the question. What is then your tool? What is then your medium? Is it acrylic? Is it watercolor? Is it digital art? Are you not even painting? Maybe you're creating an object. Maybe it's ceramics. So understanding what is your medium. You could still do the body in ceramics. You could still do the body in woodwork. You could still do the theme of body in acrylics. So again, there's so many ways you can, apply different mediums to different subjects. What do you want to discover about yourself too? Like I said, it's a personal discovery art and design. What do you want to express? I'm not saying you have to put your body in your pictures, but maybe it's something you went through. Maybe you went through acne. I had a student that did a fashion project about acne, and they used acne as a sort of textile to create an amazing collection. But again, what do you want to impact? What do you want to change? Like for Flora, was one of my students, Lucy, who created these attachments to the wheelchairs because she wanted to make an impact. She wanted to change the way the industry was, where people in wheelchairs could still have their coffee cup, have their bags with their wheelchairs, and still feel included and empowered. So again, that's what her impact was with her art and design. So I want to empower you all to ask yourself that question or your questions and start to find the answer to them questions through art and design. So ask yourself, what is the theme or my direction? What is my subject? What is my source of inspiration? What is my tool or medium that I want to use? What is my expression? What do I want to discover about myself? What do I want to impact? And all this is going to help you in any approach to your art and design. But of course, when we talk about the competition and sustainability, you can start to think about in that lens. What sustainable approach do I want to take? What medium and tool do I want to use? What do I want to talk about and express about my work? So I hope you find that helpful. And I hope you found just the exploration of the future of art and design, and also just some tools to think about, art and design in general, and how you can think about what is your subject, what do you want to focus on, and how that can help you when you're creating your artwork, especially for the competition. But I'm going to stay around for some questions, so please feel free to ask me any questions, to follow up. Again, I do help many art design students, so I'm more than happy to help you in the future. You can contact the team as well. We can set up an assessment to look at your work and give you some advice. But of course, the key thing here is we're going to focus on this competition, and really, I'm excited to see your work, and I look forward to all the different diverse ways that you've approached the subject. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to receiving any further questions.
All right, thank you for that insightful speech. I'm sure everyone here learned a lot more about art and design, and I'm certain that for the students who want to go into that field, that this speech has been borderline life-changing. So I think at this point we should probably go back to how students and youth could actually apply everything that we learned in a competition setting, and that is through the Youth Sustainable Art Competition. So in case we haven't gone over this, the YSAC competition is focused on various categories of art, mainly painting and drawing, digital art, and craft art and media. These three categories encompass a lot of the descriptions Mr. McCarthy was able to provide, and they are all open to students who want to apply their art skills in a unique setting. So here are some of the general deadlines and times for our competition. Today is naturally the info session, while our next deadline is March 1st, which is our submission and actual marking deadline. From March 7th to 9th, we'll be sending back feedback from our judges and announcing top 10, while on March 15th, we'll have an online exhibition, giving students a chance to explore the work and see what their fellow competitors have been working towards. I also want to highlight the main focus of this competition to encourage you to explore sustainable goals and apply everything that we learned today. A key part of this is focusing on a certain sustainable goal, that towards preserving the oceans. Through this competition, we hope to provide an opportunity to help youth improve their understanding of SDGs and learn the challenges, research skills, and creative expression to reach their goals. I also want to highlight the fact that each youth here can apply their own individual experiences in order to create truly unique artwork. And again, our theme is underwater. If anyone wants to learn more about it, this is the 14th ESG goal from the United Nations. It focuses mainly on how to maintain clean oceans and how that is such an invaluable tactic and strategy to maintain a sustainable ecosystem. So here are our final sign-up forms. On the top, we have a sign-up for the YSAC competition. You can also find this on our website, which is the QR code below that. All details for our competition can be found on our website. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So with that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to attend our session today. I want to extend our thanks to Mr. McCarthy for his incredible speech. And I also want to thank the members of YEFA for their contribution into making this program feasible. I also want to thank AFI for their help in helping us set this up and organize this competition. As you can see on the left, we have the final deadlines. Please feel free to screenshot this slide. On the right, we have links to our main methods of communication. And again, thank you for your attendance. So without further ado, if you have any questions, I do believe Mr. McCarthy is willing to answer them now.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. And please feel free to ask any questions. I always love questions and I'll try and answer them the best I can. It could be about your interest in art and design, the competition, questions about your own art or anything.
Yeah, feel free to type in the chat. Yes, so this meeting is recorded. However, don't be afraid of, we're not going to be distributing this massively. All of your questions can be asked pretty freely. All right, I think we have our first question. Yeah, so I'll be screenshotting the last slide and posting it in the chat. So I do believe we have some questions. Mr. McCarthy, can I hand it over to you?
Yeah, so first question was, given the art or given the digital art, would classical art skills training still be necessary? Absolutely. It's really important that even though, learning digital art is a new form that is really popular right now, you still have to learn about color theory, composition. You still have to learn the traditional art skills. It's a little bit like fashion, as an example. You can then make fashion digitally online, but it's still important that you learn about how to create fashion yourself because you learn a lot more about the actual discipline through making it yourself. So with classical art training, it's still important that you're doing shadow, line, shape, perspective drawing. It's still important that you're learning portraiture. It's still important you're learning observational skills. If anything, that's going to make your digital art stronger. But also digital art can't do some things as well, and some students prefer more classical. Some students are more better at classical than digital. So that's what's also really important, that suddenly you don't get pushed into also just doing digital art or more technological part of art because you think it's the coolest thing. It's still really important that your talent and your ability reflects the type of art that you're very good at. So my suggestion is always try to explore all the different areas and see which one is best for you. A good question, very good question. Okay, can you show the last page? I think they're doing that. What role does art play in your life on a personal level? I suppose what does art role in my personal level? Well, I actually just built a house in California. So I suppose that's one thing that on a personal level, I built a house and, sit on the interiors, and that was an amazing experience for me. And I'm not an architect, I'm not necessarily an interior designer, but of course, the great thing about art and design is you can approach it to so many different experiences, even getting dressed in the morning, even when you're sort of creating a meal or, to eat. There's so many ways you can apply design and thinking. Even if you're, for example, I had to go to the US Embassy in London a few days ago. I had to plan how I got there. What trains do I want to get? I had to plan out what materials I had to bring. It's all design in a way. So sometimes art and design, you might think about, again, painting a picture or designing something, but it really helps you to organize your life too. On another personal level, of course, I'm an educator. I also advise brands, of course, but I also just create art for myself. I don't necessarily just create art for other people. I create for myself to put on my wall, or sometimes, I'm helping my sister's kids. And so, art plays a really important role in my life in multiple different ways. Good question. And I think that's actually a good question to, as you as art and design students or educators or designers, is that, art and design is not just about a career either. It's also about a lifestyle. It's also about, it can help you in so many different ways, art and design. Everything can be designed better. Okay, next question. AI can create many magnificent pictures and videos, and it will do more than that. How the people can compete with it? Well, yeah, that's true. It can definitely create some really sort of fantasy, fabulous, sort of, surreal environments through AI. And how can sort of genuinely traditional art compete with that? Well, there's different answers to that. I know I don't have all the answers, but there's a reason why Monet, who is not with us anymore, is still something that we want to go and see in a gallery space. It's that personal experience, that person's life and lived experience. AI doesn't have that same emotional connection with us yet. AI doesn't have that living, breathing journey, struggles that artists have. So we definitely approach it with a different perspective. So a lot of times art is valuable based on different things. AI is still very valuable as a commodity, like the first AI painting. But there also still is something about a personal creating art and the value in that. And I think the value is always going to be in that. So that's why, Picasso or a Rembrandt or all these different types of art is still very valuable because the person who created it, who can't create it anymore. AI can always keep on creating it because it's a machine. So that's why NFTs in some ways haven't really hit itself off. NFTs have sort of flatlined a little bit. People thought it was going to be the next Bitcoin amazing sort of art development, but it sort of didn't really work. It sort of worked for a little bit and now it's sort of not really going to continue much anymore. But great question. I think it's an interesting space to explore. I think it's an interesting to see what happens in the AI space and how that value versus like a Monet painting versus an AI painting. I think it's going to be interesting. I was in Madrid recently and I went to see some Salvador Dali paintings I've never seen before. And it was breathtaking. So again, there's still something magical about that just, it's like books, books versus a Kindle or a digital, tablet, there's the same question. Good question, though. Great question. Thank you, Henry. Jason, at what point of your life did you start to find your passion in art? Oh, what a great question. We could be here for another hour. So when I was growing up, I actually wanted to be an astronaut. So I wanted to be an astronaut and I wanted to be a pilot. So I actually trained to be a pilot. So art wasn't my first passion, you could call it. And I actually was very good at sports as well. So I was sort of good at, I wanted to fly, be an astronaut, and I wanted to do sports. But again, it goes back to this idea, you have to try things and see what you're good at too. That's what's really important in life. So I used to try everything, all these different subjects. And one subject obviously I did try was art, and I really enjoyed it. I really felt it very, very, very calming. if I had anything I wanted to do out of all these things, art was the thing that I just wanted to do. I love spending hours trying to make it as perfect as possible, and then realizing it didn't matter if it was perfect or not, because Picasso's not perfect, is it? I mean, it's cubism. It's a different type of style for what he was trying to create. Or pointillism was a different type of style. So I realized that it wasn't necessarily about that. It's more about your expression and about how you approach that subject and how you could create yourself, because no one can create the same things in the same way. So I just loved that idea, and I just loved like creating and making stuff. And that just kept on going. This idea of creating and making and drawing, and it just became infused in who I was. And I just wanted to learn more about making and creating things. So once I knew that sort of art was the field that I wanted to do. I still flew. I still was flying. I was still trying to play football. But then when I had to go to university, I had to make a decision. I had to make a hard decision. Was it going to be flying? Was it going to be football? Or was it going to be art and design? And at that point, I wasn't sure what art and design subject actually. And I ended up choosing one that I'd never done before, which was fashion actually. So I sort of took a very crazy shot in the dark where I sort of done art, sort of fine arts. I'd done some graphic design. I'd done some architecture, but I never done fashion before. So I sort of just decided I didn't know what this was, apart from also knowing it's about clothes, and I just really wanted to explore it. So I lucky enough, I applied to a fashion school in London in the first year, and from then on, I just loved doing fashion. But what was really interesting in my journey through fashion, which what I do now is less fashion. What I do now is more art and design, because initially what got me into art and design was art and design. This idea of creating and making, and this idea of sort of just the skills of art and design. I think fashion was just sort of my lens at that point through my university time, but now I go back to more art and design now, and that's what I teach, more general art and design. But great question. But again, you might not find that subject until later on. You might just have a general interest, and it might not be until you go to university that you really find out what your subject might be. You might have to do some consultations with us, and then we can explore what we think could be good for you. I think what I noticed that was really important is asking people. You're getting counselors or teachers to tell you about your work, get some evaluations done. That really can help you, because you may not know yourself what to improve on. But honestly, it's a lifetime journey of what part of art still you like or could like or develop. So that, I would just keep learning, keep doing different skills, and then you'll find out what might work for you. But good question. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, the WeChat group QR is expired. No worries, just you can add me on WeChat, or I'm sure you get the. Oh, there. Okay, they probably answered that question. Yeah, Alison as well. Perfect.
All right. So do we have any more questions for Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah, here we go. The fear of having an unsuccessful art career is common, yes, among young people, which stops them from pursuing art as a career. What would you say to these young people? Was this ever a concern for you? Honestly, I was very lucky, probably, because I understand this. I get this question a lot from parents, from students. I meet thousands of them. And it's a real question. It's a real question, but it's also a real question if you want to study accountant. It's a real question if you want to study law. It's a real question if you want to study science and engineering. I think it's a question for every student that studies a subject. But what I say when they say this to me is I say, which I showed in my presentation, humans can't live without art and design. Art and design is history, it's humankind. Everything that we do is built from art and design. Everything around you, if you look at it, has been designed by someone. So when I talk about art, I also make sure we talk about art and design, because sometimes when we talk about art, we can sometimes think of just about like a painting again. But everything is created from artists and designers. Even doctors design their procedure, even things like the iPhone and Elon Musk, and everything's about art and design too. And it's a balance. That's why I say, maybe the technology side or the scientific side have to balance with the artistic side. And that's where I try and explain, depends what your interest is. But I think there's hundreds of careers out there in art and design. But what I tell my students sometimes is, when you look at your subject, don't just look at the main theme of the subject, like graphic design. That's the big theme. But underneath that, you've got visual communicators, which could be people who create websites, or maybe you're going to create branding and logos for people. And so try to look beyond the main subject to see the careers that you could look for. But again, I always say that, I understand the concerns, but there's so many opportunities out there, and opportunities that you can create yourself through your own artistic practice. So, I think there's so much potential out there for careers in art and design. I think everything has to be designed. Just depends on your specific interest or your specific subject. And also your ambitions, I know that sometimes ambitions are like being a millionaire or having a massive house and, etc. So it also depends on your objectives and yeah, what sort of career you want and where you want to live. Do you want to travel and study in different cities? That's an amazing thing about art design as well. And you meet people and you learn about yourself. And I would say that for me, art design as a career is one of the only subjects I can probably say that really helps you learn about yourself a lot. Being an accountant, I'm not sure you learn about yourself that much. I think in science, I think you don't learn as much about yourself. It's more about the subject. But in art and design, it's impossible. You can't disconnect you from your work. So it's an amazing experience of really learning about yourself too. But good question, Josh. That is a question I get a lot about, art careers and what do they do. But like I say, art and design, for me, also it improves your life. In any different way you think about it, it really can improve your communication. It can improve how you talk about stuff, your intellectual conversations, talking about how you want to dress or your house. So many things it can really improve on. How do you get your inspiration in art and design? Jennifer, good question. Inspiration for me comes from everything around me. I'm very sort of sensitive to everything that I see. So anything I'm looking at, I'll be inspired by. For example, my Buddha here, I'm very inspired by this. That's why I'm having my side. But everyone has their different inspirations. Some people are inspired by nature. Some people are inspired by typography when they see like lettering around in cities. Some people are inspired by numbers. I'm actually inspired by the color gray too. So if I see anything gray, it really inspires me. It could be the concrete pavement. It could be a statue. So even things like gray inspire me. I do get inspired more recently by obviously collage, because collage is one of my sort of artistic outlets. So I definitely get inspired by collage and surrealism. But you'll start to build that up. It takes time, it takes practice, right? So again, the more you invest your time in art design, the more classes you take, and you'll start to build up your own inspiration, your own sort of ideas of what you want to learn and develop, and you start to build up your own sort of vocabulary a little bit of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So you have to give it time like anything. You have to, more time you put into it, then the better outcomes you get. And you'll find the things that you get inspired by the more and more as you do it. Good question though. But again, you can get inspired by anything, history, cultures, traveling, there's so many different things. And I think it's about personal approach again, like what inspires you, Like I said, when I built my house, probably for that 2 or 3 years, I was just inspired by interiors. Like I was on Pinterest days and days, creating these different groups for houses and interiors and Mediterraneans and pools and all sorts of different inspiration. I tell you one thing I'm getting really inspired by now, because I love making candles too. So again, going back to this idea of art and design, I love making and creating stuff. Candles is one thing I also love creating. And I'm thinking about maybe creating a candle brand just for me, just to create candles and actually make it feel like it's a real brand. So I'm really inspired by candles right now. I'm really inspired by, of course, gray candles, of course. So that's something that, and again, it goes back to identity. Art design is like an identity. So you've probably already realized that I've got a gray Buddha. I love gray. I'm to make candles. So it's all fusing together into the identity, even though I'm wearing black, but black is also a shade of gray in my book. Good question, Jennifer. I wish I could ask you guys questions too, but I can't. Maybe next time. Actually, okay. Jennifer, what are you inspired by? Jennifer, tell me what you're inspired by. Tell me. Go on. If you're still there. Reading. Cool. What do you read? Tell me what you read. Because I love poetry, actually. I do a lot of poetry too. And reading is really important because in art design specifically, we're very visual people as well. And we try and look at visuals a lot. But actually, sometimes when you do projects, you want to do a lot of reading around your subjects. And you can actually find really interesting subjects and topics in reading. And actually, one of the projects I did with a student last year, we read about this idea of humans can't live without nature. And it was a really interesting article. And it really developed into a really interesting project. Psychology books, mostly, and fiction. Cool. So, I mean, that could be somewhere where you start from. Again, that could be the starting point of visualizing or materializing or brainstorming ideas. You know, what do you want to express from that? You know, is there something self-reflective about that book? So yeah, you know, it can start from anywhere. Inspiration can start from anywhere. The important thing is you're inspired. The important thing is you're passionate about what you're reading and you really enjoy it. And that means something really strong is going to come out of it. Are you interested in any art subject, Jennifer? Particular? Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Not yet. Okay. We're going to just explore different subjects and see what you can find because there's a huge and amazing world out there of art design, and you know, it's endless. There's no wrong subject, and you know, there's no wrong approach. It's just your approach, and that's the most important thing. Cool. Any last questions? Anyone got any last questions they want to ask me?
All right, so I think that might be the end of our questions, and I think that's the end of our time as well. So yeah, I would just like to thank everyone for taking their time to attend this informational conference. I want to thank Mr. McCarthy for his time in the speech. And I hope that everyone was able to sign up for the contest and get connected to our resources. We look forward to seeing all of the incredible artwork that you will make, and we look forward to reviewing them. So thank you again for attending. Our info session is now officially over, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.